Alright, let's get started. Let me just verify that we're streaming. That's not me, that's from last week. Alright, theoretically I'm streaming, but it hasn't shown up on Twitch yet. Come on, Twitch. Alright, today, as soon as I get this to show me that we're live, we're going to be working on Ardalis.Result. Why don't I see my own stream? Alright, that's it. Cool. Alright. Do I have sound? Yes. Do I have sound? Excellent. Alright, let's get started. Who do we have with us? Shady Nagy, you here? Good to see you. Make sure I go through my checklist. I think we're all good. Yep. And got chatty. Cool. Alright, we'll close that down. So Ardalis.Result is what we're going to work on today. And you'll find this at this URL here on GitHub. And it's just a simple abstraction for returning things from services that you can then easily translate into HTTP responses, ASP.NET Core API results or action results. So let me go ahead and get Visual Studio going. I think I've got this already pulled down. There we go. And where did my Winamp go? I need to play my music to code by. It seems to always want to start off screen these days. There it is. Let's play some music to code by. And that will do. Alright, let's close all these tabs. Let's take a look at what we've got in our list of issues. Hey Tony, how's it going? So I just did a workshop this week for Virtual Dev Intersection and went over clean architecture, a bunch of domain-driven design patterns. And this, I spent a little bit of time yesterday looking at this, and I noticed that I have a bunch of issues that have lined up here, so it's been a while since I've gone through these. So let's just take a look at them. One I know I saw was adding a non-generic result type. I think that one I can get done today. There's a few other suggestions here. So let's look at this localization one first. And how would I do localization for result is the first question, I think. Pull up Visual Studio. Let's look at where we're getting those. Did Visual Studio crash on me? Where is it? There it is. I have too many Visual Studios open. Give me a sec. That's better. And good. Okay, so there's our sample website. Look at the result. There's no hard-coded strings in here. And there's no hard-coded strings here. So if I'm trying to do localization, I think the issue would be this list of strings. And I would need some way to have that be a list of resource strings or resource keys that could then be used to get the strings, right? Hey Faceni, the stream, it's kind of good timing. A couple of hours of relaxation after the working week. That's good. Hopefully I'm relaxing for you. I'll try not to add too much stress. You and Shady are both over more on European time zone, so it's like end of the day already for you. For me, I've still got a few hours to go. All right, so I haven't done any localization in .NET Core. I've done it in .NET Framework, but I'm not sure what the latest and greatest recommendations are for Core. So let's do a quick Google for that here and see if we find any resources. If anybody on the stream has any resources to share, feel free. So ASP.NET Core deep dive. Let's try this one and this one. Oh, JoyDip, he used to write for me on ASPalliance.com. So let's see. Create a new project, configure startup, add localization, of course. Alright, so I would need that, or more so, the projects that are using Result would need to have that. Okay, so my challenge is that I'm not the app, I'm just a NuGet package. Define your cultures, configure your cultures in here. Alright. Grab the culture from the request. That's all in the app. So in my sample that I ship with the result package, I would need to do all this to get localization working. Use the right localization. Okay. I could default to English US or whatever, you know, default to some culture, but otherwise use the supported culture. Default culture is whatever. Custom request provider, I probably don't need to worry about that. Create resource files, okay. So we're still using resx files. Apparently that hasn't changed from old school .NET Framework. Alright, so then we'll get name value pairs and we'll have localized strings, which will use this localizer, instance of string localizer. Okay. So nothing in the view is using this that I can see. It says replace the contents with the following, but these are all just view data calls. So he must be using the localizer in the controller to give the view data the appropriate message, and that's exactly what's happening. So then if we switch, and presumably he's got a message in his resx file to convert hello world to hallo Welt, auf Deutsch. Alright, or you could inject it right into the view, and I wouldn't do that, but you could. You could add view localization. And then, oh, that's interesting. Then you can create views with different extensions. Okay. That seems like that would require a lot of duplication. This is data annotations in .NET 3.5. I don't know if that's anything I care about. Alright, so in result, let's come back to what we're looking at. The only thing that we would localize, I think, would be a list of error messages, right? Because that's the only list of strings that I've got. I've got statuses are just an enum, so that can be whatever you want. Errors are strings, and validation errors, I think, are probably strings, because validation error has a string error message. So if we want to make those localized as an option, we would have an optional key, and then if they use the key, we could look up the key, or they could look up the key for if we use that iLocalize service. Let's see what the docs say. The docs say, make your content localizable, use the iString localizer of T. So what would that look like in a result type? I'm probably not going to be using DI on the result type. Okay, once I have an whatever localizer, and I could use an HTML localizer instead. Okay, I think I just need the string one. So I'd use the string localizer, and then what does this have? Resources, resource files, resource file naming, fallback, model binding, localization. What is portable object localization? Microsoft provides no support for this feature. It's part of Orchard. Okay. Alright, let's just think about what this would look like here. So in my sample, if we wanted to add localization to sample web, we go into startup, and let's create a branch for this. I'm not even on master, so let's get on master and pull down latest master. Alright, and then let's go create a branch to play around with localization. So Ardalis localization. Okay. Read some chat now. Tony and Ficeni have some ideas. Tony was asked about GUID versus int for entity IDs. There's a comment there that you'd like me to look at. Alright. Ficeni's wondering, how would I support localized strings? We could have a resource file with data annotations. I'm not planning on shipping any strings. What I just want is for the strings to be able to support localization easily if the client wants to do so. So this sample is where localization will happen, or in whoever it is that's actually implementing this in their app, they would do localization. And I just want to make it so that the result type is amenable to it, is supportive of it. So for that, I think I would want to have either the actual message or a key to find the message. And you could just say that if you're using localization, that whatever you put in the result type is going to be the key, right? And then just use that. But that's not as intuitive necessarily. And Tony says, yes, in the DDD course, we use GUIDs for entities and ints for cruddy things. Yeah, and there was a reason for that, which was mostly so that you could not be dependent on the database, not have to do a round trip to the database to get your ID. It made it so that your domain entities were a little bit more independent of the database, because you could just create them anywhere, and if their ID was generated when you created it using GUID.NuGet, then all of the code for creating an entity was encapsulated in the entity, and you didn't have to rely on a round trip to the database to get your ID. Let me go ahead and pull that question up while we're thinking of it. And this says, we could modify this. We could use non-generic integer types for simplicity and to ease caching logic. So we are using integer types. I don't know that I wrote that. That doesn't sound like something I wrote, but nonetheless, you can support base entity of t. I did write that one, because then you can have whatever arbitrary type of ID you want. It makes it more complicated to do your repositories at that point, because your repositories have to be generic of the entity and the key type, but that's not necessarily a huge deal. Usually the three types of keys that we generally worry about are ints, strings, and GUIDs. Longs, you can make a case that you need long rarely. Ints are massively large spaces of IDs, and if you ever run out, you can always switch it to a long later, and everything's still backward compatible. So I usually just start with an int, and that works for 99% of the cases that you would have. Ease caching, I don't think I think that maybe should have been repository logic, if I were going to guess. And if I did write that, that's probably what I was thinking of. Because repository logic, I could see that making sense. Because when you go look at the repository, here, come on, it's already of t, where that's t entity. It would have to also be of t ID, and all these ints here, and is that the only one? That might be the only one. But all of these lists of t would all have to be lists of t comma ID, like t entity comma t ID. So your implementation logic just gets a little bit messier. And anything that's a get by ID has to pass in TID instead of just int ID. So I think that's probably what I meant. Doesn't using GUIDs fragment your DB, or do you not have a PK on ID? You would still have a PK on ID. And GUIDs, depending on how you generate the GUIDs, they could have impacts on your database. They could be harder to index. They could be cause more fragmentation, like you're talking about. They're usually wider in terms of how much space they take. Usually, was it 128 bits for a GUID, and it's 32 for an int by default, I think. So they're 4 times the size of an int key. But space is cheap these days, and the thing about DDD is DDD doesn't care about the database. They don't know if you're using SQL Server. They don't know if you're using a database at all. You could just be storing it all in memory or MongoDB or whatever. So because DDD is database agnostic, this or that type of key, while it does have impacts at the end of the day with whatever database you choose, it's not really the concern of DDD. That's not their point. That's not their focus. So, and for most apps, it doesn't matter, right? So it's a little bit of a premature optimization to be trying to choose how to structure your object model based on what's going to be the most efficient for your database, if 9 times out of 10 it just doesn't make a difference. And instead, you could choose whatever ID makes the most sense for your domain model, and just use it with the database, and it'll probably be good enough. In SQL Server, there's new sequential ID to avoid fragmentation, but GUID.NuGet wouldn't do that. Correct. Right. So different concerns. One is trying to keep your database efficient and performant, and the other one is trying to keep your model database agnostic. I like integer keys just as a convenience, because as a developer, I can just go to my URLs or whatever, and I can say, give me customer ID equals 123, or in my unit tests, right, I can be like, test user ID equals 123, test product ID equals 456, right? It's so much easier to work with those keys when you can just type them in with a few keystrokes. As soon as you start using GUIDs, it's everything's got to be cut and paste. You're not going to type it in. But use GUID in your domain model because it's less likely to collide. Well, I mean, it's incredibly less likely to collide. And I only used it in I probably wouldn't use it when we do it again. The new version of that we're going to do. So there's already work done on that. If you go look at github.com or Dallas, this DDD vet sample, there's a branch out here. Actually, Shady's helping out a little bit with it. Porting it to .NET 5, and it has this front desk one. You can see Shady did the last commit here. But if we look at the source on this, and we look at front desk core aggregates for like an appointment, it uses base entity. It is still using a GUID. But it could be whatever, right? If I wanted to change this, I could just make it a base entity of ID, or of int rather, and it would work fine. The only difference would be how I would make sure to get the keys back. Like I'd have to save it before I'd have the key set. Database popular, where is that going to be? So it's in shared kernel. You can hit T in GitHub in a GitHub repo to do a search for a file, which is what I just did. So here's where base entity is, and this is not doing a GUID.NuGet, right? So I don't know where I would put that code if I were trying to do that. I'd have to have another intermediate class between base entity and my actual entities, because this generic one doesn't know if it's a GUID. So I'd have to have some logic in here somewhere that would be like, if TID is GUID, then here, assign this right here to GUID.NuGet. If using int, would you use random to generate the key? No. If I was using int, I would have the key be 0. until I got one from the database. Yeah, random would be that would definitely cause errors. You'll have collisions pretty quick at that point. All right. Let me come back to this localization problem and whether or not we need to solve it. So in here, if I wanted to do the localization, I would come to JoyDip's article. I would inject in this iString localizer thingamabob. Let's just make this work. Alright, so we'll go all the way up to the top. And at the top it says, do I need a package? Do I need to install something? Visual Studio, it's just built in. It'd be cool if it's just built in. So we'll do this. So in configure services, we're going to add localization. There. And it just works. Alright. And then we can do support for data annotations, localization, view. I think I just want this one. That's what I just did. So good. Define the allowed cultures. You take advantage of the culture info class for storing this. Create a list of culture types, and where's that go? Next, add the list to your thing. Alright, so I just need that, and that, and that, and that. Okay, so really I just need this whole block. Okay, so instead of the thing I just did, we'll do that instead. I think. No, in addition to the thing I just did. We'll do that. Okay, that's better. Request culture, I need a namespace. List, I need a namespace. And we'll just start with US. And we'll do Deutsch, because I know Deutsch. Okay, so now it's all happy. And we have configured our request localization options. Okay. To add or remove localization providers, use this options class. Alright, so this is the complete list, which has that I'd added and that I added. Okay. Request localization middleware takes advantage of certain things. You also define a default request culture, which we did. Where's the middleware go? Is it always running? No, there's our middleware. Alright. So you should also use the use request localization extension. Following illustrates how this can be achieved. Var options equals get service. I wonder why that's not just injected. App.applicationservices.get service. I don't know why he's doing it that way. So this line could easily be done a different way, I think. But let's find out. So where does he do this? Right before the end. So right here. We're going to do that. And he wants to get the options. So Tony, it's a trade-off. Coming back to your question about trying to keep the DB out of the domain concerns. I'm pragmatic, right? I understand that if I want to build everything on a client and maybe have like a disconnected offline app that doesn't care about the database at all and only syncs with the database periodically, using GUIDs for all the keys in that scenario makes a lot of sense because it's much easier. And I could build something in Angular or in a mobile app and still have my full domain model and work with everything. And then when I get service, when I get coverage back to the internet, I could say, okay, sync, right? And I don't have to do anything with key generation. They already all have their keys. It just pushes the data up. But if I'm working with a usual web app And every single time the user is creating a new record, it's just immediately going into the database. Then just for the convenience of working with ints, I'll make that concession, right? I also make the concession that in my, this isn't a good project to show it, but in my entities, I'm going to have a default constructor that's private, that's, like just parameterless constructor. The only reason I need to have that is for EF core. So that's making it so my entities are not persistence ignorant, because they have to know about entity framework core by virtue of the fact that they have to have that constructor. But I like the fact that entity framework core gives me all this functionality and features and makes me more productive. So I make that trade-off. So the same thing with the ints, right? The ints are just easier to work with. They make cleaner URLs. They're easier to write tests for. So I will make the trade-off to use ints versus GUIDs because of that ease, because of that productivity increase, versus having to create the GUIDs every single time and then having to deal with GUIDs in my program and in my tests and my URLs. So I understand it's more pure if I were to use GUIDs or not use database generated keys, but I'll sacrifice that purity for convenience and productivity. Mullis Williams says, "Hi Steve, do you accept contributions in your open source projects?" Of course. If yes, what would you recommend as a general process to contribute? I have various open source projects and they have issues, and many of those issues, if you look at them here, say things like good first issue, help wanted, and those are easily the ones that you should look at first when you're thinking about where you might help. Like, I don't know if this one ever got done, but we'll add some labels here. This would also be documentation, good first issue, help wanted, enhancement, all the things, right? So I try, and when I have a chance to review the issues, I try and mark things that I don't have time to do right then, or that would be an easy one for someone to do as a, like literally as their first issue that they ever worked on. Some of these are pretty straightforward. I don't see, someone could probably do this sample if they wanted to, or I could do this on stream, but I only stream for a couple hours a week, so I don't get to things very quickly. So these are also, things that would be good. It's not exactly documentation. So good question. But yeah, I'm definitely happy to take folks. And what you can do is you can pop in and leave a comment, right? So if you see an issue, it's possible that somebody might be working on it at the exact same moment, right? These things aren't that active though generally, so it's unlikely. But even still, like if you're looking at this and you're thinking, oh, I could probably do this, it's just updating the README, right? Just come in here and say in the comment, just say, hey, I'm gonna try and do this, and then that's basically it's yours, right? So if I don't comment or if nobody else comments and says I'm in the middle of it, then you're fine, you're good. Just go knock it out, and then just create a pull request, and eventually, I'm not always fast, I apologize, but eventually I'll take a look at it and try and merge it if it looks good or give you feedback. So I definitely appreciate it. All right. So right now we're still working on the result package, and there's an issue, the very first issue, issue number 1, on localization for error messages. And if we wanted to do that, what would that look like? So I'm just kind of learning about localization in .NET Core because I haven't done it before. And we're doing that in the sample that goes with this result package, just to see what that looks like. So, and I mentioned that there's a different way that we could get these settings. So I'm going to try and test this the way JoyDip's article shows and see if I can get it work. But we'll put a to-do here and say, can we just request this in configure? Because I think you should be able to. I don't think you need to do this. This is basically a service locator pattern, where we're grabbing services right off of this collection of services here. But we could ask for this right here, and I think that should still work, and it's a little cleaner way to do it. I just don't want to change yet because I want to make sure that I can get his sample working. Alright, so then you might want to use the custom request culture provider in your applications because you want to store the language and culture in the database. This is where a custom request culture provider can help. Okay, I don't care about that, so I'm going to skip all that. Create resource files for each file, for each locale. There are various ways you can create a resource file. Take advantage of Visual Studio Resource Designer, create an XML, create a new folder named resources. select the project. Resource file is one where you can store things. Next, add resources files. Name it as controllers.homecontroller. What do I name mine? It must be the type of thing that I would want to name it. So mine's probably going to be result something something. Maybe. Let's try theirs straight example for now. So what I would do is I would come in here and I'd say add a new folder called resources, and then we would add a new resource, which is not a thing, resource file, and we would name that, I'm using pages, not controllers, but let's call it pages-english-us. That might work. Pages -english-us, maybe. Okay. Let's go see what those pages actually are. This is pages index model, so maybe it needs to be index model. I don't know. Let's try that just to make sure. Alright, and then we need to inject this thing. So we're going to inject in an iString localizer of t, where t is my page. So this thing needs a iString localizer of index model. String localizer. And we're going to make that a private. And then we'll just say public string message get set message equals string localizer dot get string message. Okay, and then we want to display that message on the page. So let's just say here localized message at message at model.message. There we go. Alright, so let's run this thing and see what we get. Right now I have a localized message of message, which is not anything great. So let's build out our resource file. So in resources, we can say we have a string message called hello world, the usual string. Okay, let's save that. And I'm guessing the reason we saw message is because it didn't find the string, but now it should have found the string. We still just see message. So that wasn't it. Let's see, where are we at? Localizer, just index into it. So maybe I don't want to use getString. String localizer whatever dot value. Let's try that. Close my web server. Come back here. Go in there. That message. It's not working. I would expect it to say hello world. iString localizer index model pages index model. I wonder if this is not looking at this resx file. Let's see if we say message something else. Is that what we get back? Yeah, so it's just passing through whatever. And I get this output. But I don't see any logging that has to do with the localizer. So why am I not seeing that? What's the trick? To access a localized string, use the DI of string localizer. I did that. Takes advantage of resource manager, resource reader. Following localized string from my string localizer. Here's how it works. It searches for a resource file matching the current culture. Alright. Is that working? If it finds one and there's a matching row with a name, it'll return the value. It then searches for the parent culture. If values found, returns that. As a fallback, the string itself is returned. Right? That's what I'm seeing. If there's no match. Alright. So in here, we're passing this in. This is working. And it should be searching in the resources file and finding this message. We told it our resources path is resources. Now this probably has to get deployed to our published folder, so this has to probably be do not copy. Copy to output folder. If it's an embedded resource, it should work. So that should be alright. So it should be smart enough to know what to do with that. The name of the resource file matters. I know, but I don't know what to name it. Do I need to give it this full name? That seems excessive. I named it pages.indexModel. He named his controllers dot something. Controllers.homeController, right? Resource file. He doesn't say why he named it that, which would have been good to know. So controllers.homeController.resource name. Alright, let's see if a sample with this, I suspect. I don't care about the key name, I care about the file name. Resource file naming issues, that's where we're at. Alright, resource names are misspelled, resource is missing. If you're still having trouble, check the localization log, which are at the debug log level for more details. Alright, so let's go crank up the logging on this. That'll be in app settings. Microsoft's default is warning. I'll make that debug. If we want to make it so we don't get overwhelmed with stuff, we should be able to make that a little bit more to Microsoft Extensions localization. Maybe. We'll see what that does. Where's my settings? Here. So let's keep that at warning. But we'll add a new one for this. And we'll make that debug. run. And we get this debug right here. Resource manager string searched for this in this. Ardalis.Result sample web resources pages with culture en-us. Okay. And that's where it should find it, right? Ardalis.Result resources pages index model. Resources pages index model dash English dash US. Should it be a dash or a dot? With culture. Alright, so Fitzeni is saying, what I usually do is create an empty class, like shared resource. Create resource files in the form of shared resource dot English dash US. So I have a dash. You're saying it should be a dot. I bet that's my problem. Dot English dash US. We'll try that. Maybe that's all it is. Okay. Searched for that thing. Now I need to give it the real key, or else it's never going to find it. So the real key in here was message, not this junk one. Hello world. There we go. We're good. So the dot was all it was. It was just the naming issue. Have one resource file per context, not for each file or view or page. Yeah, I'm expecting to change this to be per context or per, I don't know, per result message or something like that. Right now I'm just trying to get JoyDip's article working. So all I need to do now is copy paste this and make it English-US. What's German? DE-DE? What did I say it was in startup? It is DE-DE. Hey, good. So, sehr gut. Now wir können es auf Hallo Welt sprechen, sagen, schreiben. There we go. Save that. Now how do I turn my request into requesting German? That's the next question. So this will now it is Hello Welt. That's interesting. Why did you think it was German now? I didn't tell you it was German. Alright, what did your debug output say? Did I change the wrong one? Oh, of course I did. What did I say in German? Oh, they're backwards. Alright. Keep that in English. And I gotta remember to save it. Keep this in Deutsch. Save it. Save it. Back to the correct one. That's good. Alright, how do I tell it that I want to do German? Is that a query string I can pass, or do I have to add a header? Culture. There we go. He probably did some work to make that happen. It's probably not going to work out of the box. But let's try it. It does work out of the box. Nice. French. Nope, we're going to default to English. That's what it's supposed to do. Okay, so his demo works. Now, if I wanted to do this for results to work, what would I do? I would have a message for my result in here. So here's my weather forecast controller, goes and gets this forecast, comes back with this result type. There's a weather forecast service somewhere. It's not that. Weather service, where are you? Oh, you're up here in services, okay. So there's all of those. There's my validation error. So here's my identifier and my error message. Now the identifier, I think that's got to be really code. I mean, this should be realistically name of model.postal code, right? That's probably what that should be. But then this error message, if we want to localize that, what would we say? Would we say localized index or something like that? Resource key? Checks for query string, then cookie, then header. Right? Yeah, just checks the usual request things. If I'm a consumer of Ardalis.Result and I want this to work correctly, do I need to do anything other than pass in a localized message right here? Like, I guess I'm trying to figure out if I need to do anything to support localization in my NuGet package. Because I feel like I could do it right here, right? I could say pass in the localization service right here, because something's going to new this up. And this could do the same thing I did on the index page. I could take in a string localizer, and it could be a string localizer of weather service. I don't want to generate a type. I would have to add a reference to or install that package in core, which is fine. If I want to use localization, it's fine. So sure, let's do that. Do it. Install. You inject iString localizer and use this localizer. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Okay. So weather service now gets this iString localizer using that, injects it in here using that, and I'm just going to set the message to be whatever it needs to be, right? So I could even use the whole message as my key if I wanted to, and then it'll use that exact thing if they're not using localization. But since I'm assuming I'm using localization here, I would say would this just be weather service that I would make? What would my resource be called here? Pages.indexModel. It seems like it wants... Or does the resource have to go up in here? Maybe the resource file goes up here. I think maybe it does. In which case it would be services.weatherservice. Let's try that. So just to see if I can figure out how this works in multiple projects. So we'll say resources. We'll add a resource file. New item. Resources file. Services.weatherservice. Dot English dash US. Boom. And in this weather service, we're going to take this, and we're going to try and use this as my actual key, just because I want to see what that does. I may change it in a minute, but let's try it with the key. So we'll go here, and we'll say that's my key, right there. We'll say that's its value in English, and we'll save that, and then we'll make a copy of this, and we'll make that the Deutsch version. And my German is really not that good, so I'm going to totally bastardize this unless somebody wants to tell me how to say this exact phrase in German. DE-DE. And this is going to say Postal Code kann nicht mehr auf 10 Characters sein, or something like that. I don't know how to say characters in German, but that'll be my horrible version, and I just did it in the wrong place again. So copy that, Control Z, do it in the German one. Why is that so hard for me? Paste it there. That's horrible. And then where am I actually seeing the result of that? I think if I run it now, we're here, open Swagger, and try too long of a postal code. So open Swagger, we're going to post to weather service, try it out with a postal code of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. execute, and we get back postal code can exceed 10 characters. Now where would I put, where do I put the culture on an API request? I need to add a header, I think. If you're not planning to provide some default message, localization should be the package is concerned at all. Right, exactly, that's what I'm thinking. So, I mean, this is sort of just a spike so that I understand localization, so I can make that call, but that's what I think. I think I don't need to deal with it. I think when I added that issue, it was just because I didn't understand it well enough. But I am curious now, does Swagger have a way for me to add a query string parameter to this? Right, because it says no parameters. And if I were using Postman, I could just do whatever I wanted with this, but and maybe that's what I need to do. But let me modify the headers. Can I modify the curl? -h, -h. Let's try. Is this editable? It's not. So there's no way for me to do what I want to do here. I'll take this, and we'll go into Postman. And make a request called result test. I hate that it wants me to add it to a collection now before I can do anything. Like something. I know you guys can't see this. Create there. Whatever. Create a collection, random stuff. Create. Take this, put it in there. Okay, so there's my random stuff, and here's my result test, and there should be a way to import this from curl, right? Import from raw text, import. There it is, send that. We get that. Alright, now I can add a header here, and it could say culture of de-de, send, and we get back the same thing. So what's the trick? The first thing to check is, am I hitting the same web app? Because the services I could totally see being in a different web app. So there's my pages. Where's my API endpoint at? It's just an API controller. Okay, so it is right here. So it does have localization support. Alright, so where's that debug spot? It's not there at all. So we matched create controller, weather forecast. Accept language. Alright, thanks. Let's try that. Add another header. Accept language. de. No. Bad request. It's not even doing the localization check. Let's make sure we rerun it. Alright, this works. And what if I hit that endpoint here? Let's take that, create a new one of these, and just hit the home page. And we send this, and we get hello world. And we look for a header here. We say accept language. Come on. That works. So accept language works as a header on the home page. I think you didn't write the header well, but I know what is the problem. It has to do with the order of getting the info. The header is the last place it looks. Yeah, but if the only thing it has is accept language, it should work, right? This worked on the home page. So now, inside of my API here, when I hit this API endpoint, weather forecast create, if I get rid of this culture one, because we don't need that. We said that one's not doing it. Nothing in here says it's English. Send that, still English. Come into the code, and we look at this forecast controller. This thing doesn't inject anything, right? But it gets, it injects a weather service. To create a weather service, it needs to go here. When it creates this weather service, it creates this iString localizer, which we're not using for anything. So there we go, there's the problem. So right here, this needs to be underscore string localizer bracket that dot value. So it helps if you actually wire the thing up. And that was a property. I wanted that to be field. Private, whatever, underscore string. Does that look right? Looks right to me. Now we get this. Come back to Postman. Still doesn't work. Let's debug it. When in doubt, debug it. So I want a get forecast. I want right there. F5. You are debugging this. Okay. Continue. Hopefully it'll work. I really just want this to hit my breakpoint. And it does. Alright. And is it bigger? Yes. We get to here. We hit the localizer. And it jumped me to the end, but what's my error message? It's not going to show me. Oh. It was still the full thing. Retype the header in Postman. It is in. Oh, thank you. Man. I hate that it doesn't autocomplete on tab. Send. Send. It is the correct way now. Awesome. Yay. Okay, so let's just commit all that because we can. So I don't know where my get window is, but I need it back. I don't need Team Explorer because that's useless. Now that we have get changes, that's better. Implement localization in sample. Result does not need any special support for this to work. And I'll just keep all this code and push it into master, I think. Just so we can see it. So let's create a pull request and close that issue. So I don't need that. Or that, or that, or that, or that, or any of this anymore. Okay, so here we're going to just create a new pull request. We're going to do, where is it? Did I not push? I thought I pushed. Push. I did not push. Do a new pull request. There it is. We'll compare that to master. We'll create that pull request. Fixes number 1 by not doing anything but showing it's unnecessary. Create pull request. Yeah, you guys both showed me the header, Ficeni and Mullis, thank you. Dylan Beatty just rated me 8 minutes ago and I only just now noticed. Welcome, welcome. I need something that plays sounds when that happens apparently. Your German sounds kind of funny. Yeah, my German's not that good. It's been a while. Alright, so we are working on this result project, which is a NuGet package that you can use. So if you go to NuGet.org and search for Ardalis.Result, you'll find this out there, and this is the thing. It doesn't have a ton of downloads, but it's slowly getting up there. But what it does is it lets you wrap results from your services in an abstraction that you can easily then map to API endpoint responses, like 404s or 500s or 400s or what have you. So it's got a few issues logged that I'm trying to fix. So we just fixed one of them by showing how localization works and how you would use localization with this package. And we'll merge this. And it turns out that you can do localization just fine. We just wanted to prove it. And we did. So we come back out here to issues. Number one is gone. Alright, so add an example showing how to do mapping in the mediator behavior pipeline. Let's read what that is. See this behavior thing. New is behaviors. So instead of having a filter, which is how I do it now, in ASP.NET Core, I'd have some behavior in the pipeline, like a result mapping behavior that would translate this into something else. So if you use mediator for your request, so let me go find Ardalis mediator, controllers. That should do it. So if you do something like this with mediator, where you have mediator in your controller and you do a mediator.send and then you return a result wrapped around that, what you could do if you had that behavior is wrap the behavior around anything that handled one of these commands and then just return the result, right? Because the result that comes back from mediator would be the right thing, and it would either be a 404 or whatever, a not found or what have you. And so that's what we're talking about. So I don't have a sample that even shows that in result currently, but if I did, we could try and build that. So let's, how much time we got? We got like an hour. Let's see if we can do that. So let me come back to that issue here, issue 7. We'll assign myself, and we'll say we're going to work on this. So first off, we need a sample that uses mediator. So we'll come into here and switch back to master, get latest, and add mediator to our sample. So let's create a new sample web. Let's add a mediator folder. Actually, let's make a branch before I forget. So new branch, Ardalis whack mediator behavior sample. Good. Do it. Alright, now we need to create a folder for this mediator thing. So we'll add a new folder, call it mediator API. And in here, we'll add a new controller. So I've already got a controller here, so I'll just copy that one over to here with a forecast controller. And it will have a route name of, let's just call this one API whack controller, unless I'm already using that somewhere else. I don't think I am. Or even better yet, let's do mediator whack controller. Alright. And then this will be the same as the folder, mediator API. So it's all happy. Now this will need a mediator, and I'll need to install mediator. So I don't have that. So let's manage our NuGet packages. Look for mediator. I have not done mediator behaviors much at all, so this will be new for me. I need both of these things. I think if I get this one, it gives me the other one. Alright, so there's that. And let's wire it up. So in startup, I need to do add mediator. And that needs a namespace. you want an assembly, I think. Alright, there we go. You want a list of assemblies to look for, so we can do startup.getType or type of startup dot assembly. Right? Do that, can I? Why is that not working? It's not an instance variable, so I can't do that, but I should be able to do, oh, I did type of startup. That's why I got my parentheses wrong. Alright. Okay, dot assembly. Let's just make a variable for it to make it more clear. Var WebAssembly equals that. And then mediator will add the WebAssembly. Alright. Type of startup. Thanks, Vicente. Right, so then mediator's wired up basically. Now to get that to work, we'd come over into this controller, and instead of doing the work here and passing in this DTO, we'd create a new command to get that. So the weather forecast DTO is where? Where are you defined? Way up here in DTOs. Okay. I could just make that a mediator thing, but then I'd have to mediator up here. So now let's not do that. Let's just create a new DTO that we need. So I want something that looks an awful lot like that, but we're going to call it a command. We'll put it here. We'll put it right in the class. So there's my weather forecast request. Is it a command or is it just a request? Command. I think that's a command. It's creating a new thing is what it's trying to do. That's the weird thing is I named this thing get forecast, but it's actually creating a forecast, so it really shouldn't be called a get. Let's get rid of that. No, actually, let's keep that. Let's call this a weather forecast request command. It's really a new forecast. New forecast command. Alright, and that is a mediator type of, what is that mediator type? Mediator dot command. Steve, do you work with SendGrid? I have. I use SendGrid on a lot of my Azure things, sure. What is this? It's an iRequest, right? I think. Do I say what that is here anywhere? I don't think I do. Somewhere I have a link to the file, but I think it's iRequest. And this needs data annotations. So there's my command. So then instead of using this DTO here, I would just say new forecast command for that. Wants that, okay. And then this just becomes, let's see, bring in mediator. Like that. No, I don't need this. And I don't think I'm using that logger anyway. Don't need that or that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Still don't need that. Now this has this translation piece, the way it's doing it. That's what I'm going to be replacing with this behavior. So I guess I can get rid of that. In which case this becomes an iActionResult instead of that, I think. It probably ought to be async. So async task of iActionResult. Right? And then that needs to be that, and then this is going to ultimately be await mediator.send the model. And then it needs to return something. I guess it returns that, right? Return, await, mediator, send, model. Alright, but that means this can't just be a request. It needs to be a request of T, where T is my response. And my response should be that thing I was returning before. A result, or should it? Because I want that to be translated. JIT cipher. I have an issue with being able to send email on behalf of my clients which have different domain names. Do you mean that you have a multi-hosted? Is there a solution to send an email from multiple domain names from one SendGrid? I don't know. That sounds like a question for SendGrid. I have not tried it. Alright, let's get this to work first. I'd help you more in JIT cipher, but I have no idea. Sorry. It's not something I've tried. Let's get this to work with this and just get mediator in there first as an incremental change, and then we'll try and get the rest of it to go. So let's see. Let's go back here. We'll keep that return type, except it'll be a task now. So a task of that return type, and we'll keep the attribute and see if it does its job. Copy that, put that up here. No, 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 no. That. All right. This ought to work. Why are you not working? Oh, right, because I didn't give you a T. So you need to be of this. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3. All right. Does that work? Yeah, but you don't need to use async. Okay. Good, then get rid of it. Perfect. Okay, so now I need a handler. So we can put the handler in here too if we want. So I may break it out later, but let's do public class new forecast handler. It's just an I notification handler of all this. I think. Isn't that how that works? But I want you to be a behavior. No, I want you to be a handler, and I'm going to add a behavior. So I notification handler of, isn't it all that stuff? I think I got it right. Implement. Okay, so you're not happy. What's the matter here? The type I request cannot be used as a type parameter in a generic thing. No conversion from mediator I request result. Okay, so an I request is not the same as an I notification, I guess is the thing. So I need an I request handler, I think is what it's telling me. Right, because I'm not doing an event, I'm doing a command. Okay, so that's better. Implement that. Now are you happy? No, because now there's no conversion from I request to I request of unit. Media request can be used. Why am I trying to go to request of unit? That would be the non-generic request. Or is this two things? Do I have to pass this thing two things? I'm going to look for I request handler. Go to my own article here. How do I I say to use this thing. So I've got a notification with a notification handler, notification of some event. What about commands? I've got an iRequest of something, iRequest handler of something, comma, result. Okay. They're both the same though. This is a request of something, comma, result, and this is of something, comma, result. iRequest of something, but that's my request type, is ping. Okay, so I need it to be that concrete thing. So this iRequest handler is not of iRequest yada yada yada, it's of new forecast command, comma, new forecast command, comma, the thing it returns. 1, 2, 3, that should be it. Okay, we'll do that. That's better? Now what do you, everything's happy, sweet, okay. Alright, and at that point, this guy is going to do the work. It's going to take in a weather service, weather service, weather service. It's going to do one of these. It's going to return. And of course now weather service is not async, which is going to be a problem. What if I make an async version of it? Public task of result of enumerable of weather forecast. Get forecast async. The DTO model. Turn task dot complete get forecast model. Does that work? So we need this to be threaded. Task dot from result. Right? Everything above you is going to think that you're async, I think. So get forecast async is what we want to call. Here, return weather forecast dot get forecast async, and this one we want to await on. I think it's going to yell at me and say I don't need to. Right? Yeah. So okay, fine, we won't. At some point, something has to await, but I've got this Visual Studio extension that keeps telling me whether or not I need async and await, and it constantly tells me I don't need it. So, all right. Now I've got to convert a DTO from this thing. So we're going to say a new DTO where postal code equals request dot postal code. So that's where we'll translate from one to the other. And we should be ready to test this thing. Oh, real close. Okay, so that's all good. I want to hit this with Postman or Swagger at mediator whack controller. So mediator whack with the forecast controller. Alright, so here's that, there's that. We'll open Swagger. There's the mediator one. We're going to try it out. We're going to pass it a string 55555. That's supposed to do something, something, something 200. Look at that, everything works. Okay. Hey, what are we trying to do? We are working on this Ardalis.Result package, which maps results from your services to things that can be useful in web APIs. And I have an issue. I'm just going through my issues trying to fix them. I have an issue saying, show a sample how to do this in a mediator behavior or as part of a mediator pipeline instead of having to use a filter. And so the way it works now with the filter, if we come and look at this sample, is I can have a service that returns a forecast. Forecast is just this enumerable of you know what the weather's going to be. And then I can have a service that returns a forecast that returns a forecast that returns a forecast. And then I can have a service that returns a forecast that returns a forecast that returns a forecast. And then I can have a service that returns a forecast that returns a forecast that returns a forecast. And then I can have a service that returns a forecast 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 that re given something, right? So this service is not specific to ASP.NET MVC, ASP.NET Core. And notice that this is a controller, but instead of this controller returning an iAction result, it's actually returning the result type here. So that's what this getForecast returns, is a result of t. That's my result thing that we're working with. But then there's this filter, this translate result to action result, that jumps in and will convert this. So if you look at the sample when you run it, which is here, it says, hey, here's some things you can try to see that you get different results. So if you give it a blank postal code, you should get a 400 bad request. Now that 400 bad request is coming, in that case I think it's coming from model validation. I'm not sure though, but let's open this in a new tab. So here's our new tab. We'll go here and we can try it out. We can pass it nothing and we expect to get a 400, and we do. And it says one or more validations occurred, postal code field is required. Right, so that's great. That's what we expect. If we pass it in literally the word not found, we should get a 404. So if we come over here and we pass in not found, we execute that and we get a HTTP 404 not found. So what happened there is, if we look at that service, it's over here, the service returned a result dot not found. So it didn't return null, it didn't throw an exception, it returned result dot not found, and then the filter translated this generic not found enum value into an actual HTTP status of not found. And the filter is pretty simple. The filter is, I'm not sure where the filter is. I think the filter is in a different project. But what we're trying to do now is do that same translation in Mediator. So Mediator, if you haven't used it, is a way to do messaging inside of your request from one place to another without direct dependency. And it kind of looks like this. You pass in a Mediator. You use reflection so that Mediator knows about all the handlers for a particular command. You define your command, like this one. So I've got this command that has a postal code on it. And you define your handler, and you define what it returns. So this handler accepts a command and returns this type, whatever this type is. And in this case, my return is a result of weather forecast. So here's my handle method. It takes in my command as a request, and it returns back this result of weather forecast. And when I call here, mediator.send, it's going to execute this handler. But you can also have a pipeline, and that's the part we're about to add. So in Mediator, I thought I had it up at one point. Let's do a search for it. Mediator, pipeline, behavior example. That's what we want. We'll do this one. So we create a iPipeline behavior of this comma that, which I think has to match. And this basically works just like middleware, right? So you tell it the next thing to do. And then you invoke somewhere in here, you await next. So this pipeline is identical to middleware, and you can just wrap it around things. And so you register the pipeline inside your config somehow. And that's it. So there's built-in behaviors for request pre-process and request post-process, which I think are already wired up. But I want to create my own behavior, and instead of doing logging, I want it to do translation to the ASP.NET type that it's going to return. I wonder if that's a possibility. Can I change the response type in a Mediator behavior? Because I think that's what I want to do. And maybe that's not even possible. So can a Mediator behavior change the response type. So command, my handlers return a result of response and not just response. This sounds like exactly what I'm trying to do, right? They're using the result type. You could create your pipeline with result as a generic argument and add a constraint on it. Okay. Here's the logging one. So as long as your T response is some kind of iResult, it works. It might be a DI issue that he's having. So here he registers the handler, and here he registers the pipeline behavior. Type of iPipeline behavior. This is simple injector. And there's me popping in. Okay, so I've been here before. That's always interesting. I'm not sure I can do what I want to do with a pipeline behavior. Let's read this some more. Build your own pipeline. But it's still strongly typed, and it's still going to have to return that response. It only works with iRequestHandler. That's what I'm using. Doesn't matter if it returns something different when it's done. Thank you for the follow, Kasia. Pattern behavior. Most containers support multiple instances of a type. Register them in the order you want them called, and they'll wrap each other. Okay. So I feel like I want to register an iPipeline behavior. Let's get this logging one working. How about that? We'll start with their behavior, and we'll go from there. So mediator API. Let's just add a new class. Call it logging behavior. Paste in this thing. Logging behavior of T, iPipeline behavior. We need mediator. We need probably an iLogger. And whatever that is. And we're happy. Okay. Then we need to register this. The trick will be registering that open generic here. I might need to go back to my link that I made. Registering pipeline behavior. That's all structure map style. Mediator. Pipeline. ASP.NET Core. How do I register that? Well, you do this. Services add transient of that. Alright. So we do add mediator. Add this pipeline behavior, type of logging behavior. That. Alright. Now if that worked, then we'll see these log statements and we can debug it. And if I hit that weather forecast controller, it's fine. Thanks for the follow, Gicola. Alright, we're going to open Swagger over here. We're going to hit our mediator controller, try it out, pass in not found, hit execute, we should hit our breakpoint, we do. We should be able to step and continue, and in here we should see info handling new forecast command, handled result of t. Okay, and we got back our 404 as expected. So that's all working. Okay, so now the challenge, point of this whole exercise, other than just playing with behaviors, is can I add another behavior that does translation to something else? And that's what I'm not sure of. So this thing is a result of that. Can I have it be instead an iAction result? Viceni says, as it's done here, it might work only if the return generic is contravariant and the type you want to return is inherited from the original type. Yeah, exactly. So what that means is that I can't use a result of t unless that result of t inherits from iAction result to start with. And that doesn't work for me because I don't want to have the core app up here have to depend on anything but the result type. It shouldn't have to depend on ASP.NET. It should work on anything, right? It doesn't care, it doesn't know or care if it's being consumed by ASP.NET Core. So I think I just can't do this, I think is the long and short of it. Without making some serious compromises to what I would want to do. Thanks for the follow, Den Deline. Appreciate it. So I'm going to still check this code in because we got some working stuff here. It's not really doing anything interesting for this, but we'll add some context here. Let's put in some comments right here to say what we're trying to do. So one might try to perform translation from result of t to an appropriate iAction result from within a mediator pipeline. Unfortunately, without having result of t depend on iAction result, there doesn't appear to be a way to do this. So this example is still using the translate result to action result filter. Good enough. Alright, so we've tried localization and decided we aren't going to do anything about it, and we've tried mediator pipelines and decided we aren't going to do anything about it. So implemented mediator with pipeline to research using pipeline for request or result translation to iAction result. It doesn't look like it would work. Alright. But that's still progress. We'll take it. So we're going to pull request this into the code. Come back here, go to pull request. This was number 7. Compare and pull request from me to master. Mediator pipeline in sample. Researching if we can do result translation in sample. Nope. Fixes number 7. Okay, and we'll create that pull request. And I didn't write any tests, so I didn't do anything except in the sample, so I'm going to go ahead and just merge it and delete my branch. And let's look at the next issue. Provide a convenient way to create a result with Fluent validation. I thought that was done. There's another whole package for Fluent validation, right? Published here now, should be available. Yeah, this is done. I'm closing this. So if you want Fluent validation support, you can just go here, and you get Fluent validation support with result. Alright. Down to still 7? I thought I killed that one. Add samples showing Ardalis.Result with Fluent validation and Web API with the filter. I don't have that. Alright. See this comment. PRs. Domain model, Web API, including the translate. Okay, so this is the part that we need. That's done. That's not. Okay. How much time we got? 20 minutes? I don't know if I'm going to get to that in 20 minutes. I have a hard stop because I have a call at 2. So let's look at the other issues for now. Let's see. Pagination option. We'll just jump to the first one. Alright, so one of you was asking, like, how would I accept work on things? This is how, right? So Hamid's working on this. So we'll see how that's going. It's been a month. We'll leave him be. List of validation error should be also in the error function. Right now, we get error messages, but not validation errors. And I did that intentionally. A validation error has to specify a field. An error message could be anything. It doesn't necessarily refer to a field. So I think I'm going to close this as by design. The exception could be anything. Alright, so we're going to close this one out from August. I'm really keeping up on these well. Add a public static result of success, comma, message. We can add another method for success. We can send a message along with the values. It'll help client-side applications. We send messages of success to the user from the back end. Sure. So Shady could make a... Are you still here, Shady? You were here earlier. Yeah, you're there. If you want to do this, that would be fine. Or I can do it right now if you want. So, there's that. And we'll assign... Can I assign you? I'm going to assign you. If you're no longer inclined to work on this, just let me know and I'll do it. Alright, so this one's being worked on, this one's being worked on. I wonder if I can assign this to Hamed. I don't think I can. Oh, I can. Ooh. Look at that, now he's on the hook. Alright, this one, someone asked for. This might require a different iResult. Should work as a return type instead of void. This one's pretty good. I think I'll do this one. So assign, this will be an enhancement. Let's look at this. Non-generic result. So we want to come back in here. We want to go back to master and get latest. And create a new branch. And this will be non-generic result. And we'll close all the things. Close all tabs. And what would we do with a non-generic result? Well, we probably want to have some tests for that. And eventually we'll build a sample for that. But it's designed for doing something that doesn't have a return type. So if we start by looking at this, the only thing this really uses is value and return type for is value and value type. Otherwise, it's going to look a lot similar, or very similar. So let's do, I need a different iResult too though, don't I? So let's look at iResult. And should this be iResult or should this be iResult of t? I wonder if maybe I screwed up in the beginning by not making the iResult generic. In which case this would be a much bigger change. I can't talk today. Object is grayed out here. So this would work. Oh, that would work. Alright. Alright, so there's no T on this now. Alright, there is on this one. Because I use it in a constructor. And then I add a public T value, but there is no public T value on iResult. I feel like this thing needs refactored, which becomes a bit of a bigger change, but let's try that. So if we make this iResult of t, and we promote t value get to iResult of t, right? Public, yeah, I don't need public. Does anything else expose t? So then this result becomes inherit from iResult of t. And that's not that big a change. Now, do I need a type of value type to return anymore? Where did that even get used for? I'm not sure I need that. If I get rid of it, in that case, you won't need value type and get value. Right, that's what I'm thinking. So then I don't need any of these either. Like, this seems like it would have been obvious to make it generic from the get-go. So I'm trying to think why I didn't do that to begin with. If that was just an oversight or if there was a good reason for it. Right, because now those go away. And that breaks the whole world. But if nothing much was using them, there won't be too much to change. Let's see. Here. So if value, this should never have a null value because we're going to create a different abstraction for when it doesn't have a return. So if value is null, I should blow up. So I shouldn't need this. And I should have a guard clause or something for value being null. So we'll put a to-do here. Throw if, actually we'll just do a simple one here. If value equals null, throw new argument null exception, argument null exception, name and message, right? Give them a hint there of what to do. Alright, now my tests ought to fail, because I'm pretty sure I had tests. No, apparently I have no tests. Okay. Well, so far this is easier than I thought it was going to be. Alright, so that goes away. And that goes away. And those all go away. Okay. I think the reason those might have existed was so that I could support void without having a different result type. And so now we'll have a different result type. So let's check this in. And we'll say make iResult generic, require value in result of t. That's pretty much what we changed. Alright, now we want to create a different iResult. I don't know if I can inherit between them. I think I might be able to. So if we do public interface iResult, like that. And we take these things, we stick them on there, and then we make this one inherit from iResult. Then nothing really breaks. Makes it tough to put them in their own folders. I guess I'll make, let's make this one iResult T. Would you like to do? No. But I would like to put iResult now in its own file. There we go. So that works. And this becomes similarly result T. No. But I do want to create a public class result. iResult. It's possible that that one will be a base type for result of T when we're done here. Maybe. Alright, you're not going to have that. You might have that. You will have that. So I need those. So let's put that up here. Implicit operator. I don't think I need these either. Result of T value. Result of value. I don't think I need those operators. I do need these three things. And it'll be those three things. Alright, status errors, validation errors. Alright, now I'm good. I can compile. Alright, and then this has a bunch of static helpers to create it. I want those still. But success just won't take. Alright, let's try this. So we'll put those on here. And none of them take T. This takes nothing. Alright, and then that goes away. Except it doesn't, because it needs to take in result status dot success. Okay, I guess. Alright, so is that good? Is there a way for me to inherit between these two to get rid of duplication? And do I need these implicit operators now for this other one? So these are just letting me cast to and from the value. I don't have a value, so I shouldn't need those. The static methods I can't inherit anyway because they're static. So the only thing I could inherit would be these properties. Is that worth anything? I don't think it is. So I think we'll just make this separate but not inheriting. Alright, so this, if we publish this, this will definitely be a point release because we're definitely breaking things. Oh yeah, here's my ASP.NET Core translator. Alright, so those will need to update. Result of T extensions. Result of T result. Okay, so I need another one of these. Perhaps. These are not going to be I don't want to have two of these things. So for me to make them covariant, contravariant, I think it's contravariant. I need this to be, I do need them to inherit from one another if I want that to work. That gets uglier. So initially I can do it with a separate helper method, a separate extension method. And I should only need one filter. So I think this will be okay. Let's just make it another. Let's make this Ardalis.Result of t type of. Okay, I guess that's what I wanted. And we'll just make another version of this to do an Ardalis.Result without the t. And the value of the thing, we're not returning anything. Action result of t. You're just an action result, and you're just an action result. There is no t. Fixed typo result. No, that's my class. That's what I called it. Called it result. Ardalis.Result.Result. Ew, that's not good. What if that namespace is going to be a problem? Well, let's just fully scope it. Ardalis.Result.Result. Now are you happy? Using generic type result of t requires an argument. I'm not using result of t, I'm using result. This is result of t, and this is result. Why are you thinking it's the wrong one? Because you depend on this package and not on this project. I can change that though. We've determined that project references will turn into package references. So we'll make this a project reference to Ardalis.Result. And then you should be up to date. There we go. Okay, so that works. Not found returns not found. Invalid returns invalid. This still has a to-do. I don't know if that needs fixed anymore. And then OK is just going to return OK without the value. Right? That looks good. We've got like 5 minutes left. Target Framework Netcore app is out of support. Yeah, I should fix that. iResult. Should I update all this to net 5? I may as well. iResult does not have a definition for get value. You're right. Alright, so if it is iResult, that'll still work with iResult of t, because iResult of t implements iResult, so that should be okay. If you're not a controller, return. If your status is not found, return that. If it's invalid, return that. Okay, return this, and then wait, now at this point I need to check to see, and I can do pattern matching on this as well, which is what this is doing, I think, and say if result is iResult of t. What the heck is t here? How do I do an is on a generic type? Check if object is a non-specific generic type. You can do if object equals new. Well, that's ugly. Is there an easier way to do this? Type.get generic type. Is compatible with. Just result.value, probably in the case you want. There is no result.value though, that's the thing. It's only got result.value if I cast it. And if I cast it, it has to be an iResult of t, and I don't have the t. So how do I get to a result of t in here? Maybe this is why we had the dot value in the first place. Honestly, because this works fine as long as it's that one. So shoot. I still don't know why I needed to have the type of it, but this is my part where I'm stuck. And I'm out of time, so this may be where I have to return at some future point. So leave a note here for myself. Just to comment that out, and comment that out. We'll just do context.result equals new okay result for now, which isn't right. We'll say need a way to get generic iResult of t.value here if possible. Alright, we'll check that in. Working on having a generic result of t and non-generic result that doesn't return a value. Commit, push. If anybody wants to look at that code, it's out there on Ardalis WAC non-generic result. And you're thinking maybe we need reflection. It's possible. This thing has a bunch of ways to do it. Let's go look at livecoders.dev and see who's on Twitch and have it blast sound at us. Oh no, it's muted. Alright, good. Let's go look at Clarkio. I'm going to assume Clarkio is working on something fun. So let's just go to my stream manager and raid Clarkio. So I already got 46 people there, and I'm going to start the raid. I'm going to say, hey everybody, thank you for joining me on this Friday. Have a nice weekend. Go pop in and see what Clarkio is up to today. Alright, thank you. See ya.